now if the global economy is not in our favor. So it's a chronic disease, and it will take a while. Sometimes it's easier to say we have to change from import driven to export driven. It's a difficult thing to do, and that will be overhauling the whole economy. But now the tax revenues are short, and it's not giving government room to operate, especially when it comes to infrastructure development.
So what you're saying is that there's a real challenge for government here. You've got to spend to expand the economy. You've also got to meet your fiscal deficit target.
Yeah.
You're not raising enough revenue. So what you do is to sacrifice the expenditure on capital projects just to achieve this target.
Yes. And if you do that too, your growth will suffer, because you won't provide the necessary tools that would enhance your growth. So you get into this vicious cycle where one will lead to the other, and it will get worse. And before you realize, growth has become very, very small.
Samson, let me take your own thoughts on what the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund said with regards to increasing or improving domestic revenue targets.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you and my colleagues here. I must say, you know, you have just given me on the spot, but I have a campaign that I'm staking. And that is about the Meridian Port Service, MPS. You know, they are constructing the port at the port.
Right.
And we were told that we were bringing in $1.5 billion into this country. And so far, by June this year, the project will be ready for phase 1. My question is, how much so far of the 1.5 billion that they convinced government to give, for Ghanaian to give them tax holiday about 30 years, how much so far have they brought into our country? Be it the equipment, be it the money. I'm telling the Bank of Ghana to tell how much, because they made us to understand they are bringing 1.5 billion. True. I said to the president that we cannot allow MPS to take stevedoring work come June this year. We cannot allow that should be allocated to solely Ghanaian companies in this country, so that this money can stay here. I also said to the president, to the government, that we cannot allow the scanning companies to be installed by the scanners to be installed by MPS, because there's a contract with a Ghanaian sole-owned company that have been given, that whether we are bringing goods from our borders or we are bringing goods from our port, whether exit or entering into the Ghanaian market, it must go through scanners, and that contract is given to a Ghanaian company. Okay. Then the third one is that the MPS should not be given the opportunity, the exclusive right to do its own tariff for Ghanaians.
Okay, I think your point is well made. So let's get to the issue right
So this
now.
has been a campaign. I want you, the media people, to show an interest in it. It's very important.
We'll do that. Thank you.
For the sake of our economy, as we're discussing now.
Okay.
Now, back to the main question that you've asked. I think she came to Ghana about a month ago or 2 months ago. Right. And you rightly heard her say that if you make your revenue and you are spending on white elephant project, then you should forget it. She made it clear that we need to do production base. We need to produce. We need to expand our industries. And then if that is being done, coupled with giving them proper package of utility tariff, lower rates that they are paying, then you can produce in large quantities. So, my people, those who go to China to buy goods and comes here and is competing with the Ghanaian manufacturer here, when you ask of the cost component analysis, it tells you that they are paying so much utility, or they are paying so much taxes on the raw material, which this current government made us to understand in their first maiden budget, that they were taking steps to abolish certain raw materials that has been brought into the country to do onward production. I hope you are getting me. So if our utility tax base is so high on the manufacturers, then at the end of the day, you think price of goods will be cheaper to encourage or to make it this incentive for an importer to travel and go and bring in goods.
I'll come back to you. Winslow, you are an economic and finance person. Why are we not able to raise enough? I know that over the period we declared the economy grew, expanded, we became more middle income, you know, and so obviously the sort of support that would often get from the donors would diminish over time. Yeah. But beyond that, why are we not raising enough domestically?
It comes to the tax net. You know, historically, there's a very small group of individuals who are taxed. And I think last year government tried to at least open up the tax net a bit, but it's still not enough. I mean, we are one of the countries in West Africa that taxes very, very little compared to
tax to GDP.
Yes.
Right.
And if we don't change that, we would have a problem, because if you can't tax enough, you can't do anything. And if we are not careful, we'll put more taxes on the ones that are easy to tax.
So what goes into the preparation of the budget? Look, we say you can't spend what you don't have.
Yes.
Okay? Are we saying that almost every time what we have is a budget deficit in this country?
Okay, what the government tried to do is they would have their spending plan at the beginning of the year, and then they would have their revenue expectations. What happens is when the revenue is not that significant, then they cut back on
Expenditure.
Yes. So for the past 2 years, we've seen a situation where expenditure on capital is lower, because anytime we don't meet our revenue targets, then the government will scale back on capital expenditure. And I think that was mentioned in the IMF report too, that capital expenditure is low and we have to increase it. The only way we can increase it without causing any problems for us is to increase our tax revenue, which is currently very difficult to do. So what the government is doing is those who can easily be taxed, the importers, the manufacturers who import. So they are easy to tax, so you place more taxes on them. Okay. Which
I'll start off with assumption. But so what you're saying is that every time the budget is structured such that we overspend.
Yes.
And so how do we make up for that shortfall? We borrow.
Yes, and we get donors to finance the
and
deficit.
That's what constitutes the deficit.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think what government is doing this time is not to overspend, but try to spend to match the revenue. So that's where we have a situation
to
where
get a balanced budget.
Yes.
Is that possible? Have we ever had that?
A few times in a very long time, but once in a while we get it. But for now, it will be very difficult because everybody is pushing government to, do more roads and bridges and all that. And if we don't have the revenue, then we'll definitely run into
And
deficit.
You say there's a cost to always sacrificing capital expenditure. There's a cost to pay.
Yes.
As a country.
Yeah. Because capital expenditure is supposed to support the growth in the economy. If you decide to...
So if you decide not to construct roads, not to build schools, you're not paying contractors who fuel the engine of the economy, then there's a challenge.
Then what happens is
the economy contracts.
Yes.
Okay.
Economic growth will be affected. And if it's affected, then you won't get even more revenue to tax, which means your tax revenue also falls. And then you come back to reduction in growth, economic growth, and then it feeds into it.
So it becomes a cyclical thing, like you said. Samson, I hear you people have become the major targets for government raising revenue. Is that so?
You see, where I sit, I always have a challenge in every regime. The previous regime, under my regime, when I say it, they said, look, Mr. Sake is a troublesome guy. This current regime, when I speak about the taxes, they say Samson is a troublesome guy. The point is that, as the economist rightly said, where is the easiest way for government to tax? Then you say at the port. Then you ask them, how much do they make from the port? They will tell you 60% or even 50%. They are not getting... No, they are getting 90% of our revenue is coming, or 99, I must say, it's coming from the port. The burden is on importer, is unbearable. These days, it's not lucrative to do import into Ghana, if you don't know. The prime rate was reduced from 17 to 16. I'm told.
The policy rate.
The policy rate. It's not reflecting from where my brothers came from. The money he's lending to his customers is a headache. Now, if our interest rate, that's a consumer rate with how the businessman will go and turn around to pay his loan and for you to taxes, then all the time you're putting taxes on the importers. Then you ask yourself, it is a lazy man way approach of making your work. Are they not also supposed to be given the opportunity for them to grow? as you speak, in the last budget, we were asking government, can you hold the dollar rate at that time? I think it was 4.3 or 4 point something. At the time, the finance minister came to parliament to deliver the budgetary statement for 2019. As we speak, $1 is 5 Ghana cedis. If you are buying $1, if you are buying it, you are buying 5 point something. So you ask yourself, and that was the reason why I was asking that if Ghana Port, if Meridian Port Service, the MPS were to said they were bringing 1.5 billion US dollar, we are not, do you know we are not supposed to see this depreciation of our city? So the first phase, how much? That's why I asked the question: how much forex have they brought in so far? You can question government. Government can question MPS that you told that you are bringing 1.5 billion. That could have come to cushion our city depreciation.
I'll come back to you, Sam.
No, don't go.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Then we talk about, is it port is the only place? I asked the question. Is port the only place for government to make it needed revenue? No. We have commercial banks. In fact, indeed, as we speak now, how many Ghanaian banks do we have now? We now have foreign companies, foreign commercial banks in Ghana, making over 3,000% of interest after taxation or after declaring 31st December. How much is that money stays in Ghana here, and how much is government being taxed? You come to telecommunication companies, they are also making a lot of money. You come to the mining companies, they are making money. So why is that? And then manufacturers are asking government to do something proper on the utility tariff for them. As we speak, we are not getting the needed package in terms of, and my heart bleeds when AGI is not on the neck of government to say, look, if you go to our counterparts in China, if you go to our counterparts
is that also not a sort of strategy by government to disincentivize importation of certain goods? I
would have been happy if government is giving proper utility package to local manufacturers, local industry in this country, and making it unburden for importers on certain commodities that this proper package of utility that they are giving to local industries, that we have it in abundance here. Why are you going to bring it? So by increasing taxes on them, I would not have any problem. But situation whereby those who are already they are struggling with their commercial bank interest rate that they are paying.
Winslow, is another strategy of government to increase exports whilst reducing the importation of goods?
You should have asked that question to me,
goods.
Because export is off air. I told you that when government says we are going to do industrialization, I expect us to even to sit with people like us to say, what can we identify as stakeholders, so that even the one district, one factory, what can be produced and can be exported? Because if it is clear, it's clear. You don't need an economist, a PhD holder to come and tell you that when a country that does export, bring forex back into the country. And that is why, because that can't cushion our city. And that's why I'm particularly interested on the MPS 1.5 billion.
Right.
How much have they brought to the country?
Let me get Winslow's take on it. Winslow?
You see, when you look at exporting, you see, before you can export, you should have the manufacturing base. We haven't developed our manufacturing base to the point that we can say we are discouraging importation.
And that's why I guess it was very difficult for Ghana at the point people were pushing for a total ban on poultry and poultry products.
Yes.
It was difficult. Nigeria were able to do that.
Yes, Nigeria was because they could produce to meet the market.
Local market, absolutely.
Ghana, if we cut it, we'll have shortages. And that's a real problem. We haven't developed
because 40%, 60%.
industrial base. We haven't developed it very well, so we can't cut imports. And it would have to be a gradual process. We start by first incentivizing the industry participants, as say, so tariffs should be low. They should have access to funding. Currently, I mean, businesses can borrow at competitive rates, and if you can't borrow, then you can't grow your business.
In Africa, it's 6%. Is it 6 or 3% per annum?
It's
3%. Yeah. Yes, Africa is very close to us. That even went to, after their election with violence, with election violence, they are borrowing at 3% per annum. How can you compare?
The paperless export system, I guess, was one of the major contributors to the increase in internally generated revenue. That was a good policy by the Vice President.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
But it had to be, suspended, I guess, because of certain challenges.
Yeah, there were a few challenges. I mean, if you are trying to change years long of doing heavy paper processing, It was, but I think it was a very good idea that we should have pushed through, because that would have sealed a lot of the leakages. And there are a lot of the leakages at the port, even though we make a lot of revenue.
Too much human interference.
Yes. And I mean, some products are underdeclared and all that. There are a lot of leakages. And I think if we want to increase the revenue, we should focus on the ports very well, so that we don't, you see, because there are leakages, we tend to overtax the people there.
Okay.
So you import something because they expect that maybe 20-30% of the time people would evade taxes. So they put that one on those who are actually paying.
Right. So Samson, it's not really to overtax, but he said, the whole idea is to block the leakages.
My friend is sitting in his comfort zone. That's why he's saying this. My brother, you said paperless has been suspended.
No, it was initial. Was it initially?
No. Paperless has been running since.
All right. Okay.
Paperless
I think it was one of your one of the policies.
Are you talking about cargo tracking note?
All right, that one, yeah.
And until the cargo tracking note has been suspended.
Which one was suspended?
Suspended from where?
There was one of them that was suspended, I guess.
No, there's nothing that was suspended.
Okay.
I don't know if that was suspended.
All right, so you go ahead.
Look, in 2017 alone, 2018 alone, importers saw so many introduction of policies, be it tax stamp, it hasn't been suspended, be it what do you call it, cargo tracking note, be it paperless implementation.
Okay.
And so, you see, I heard they said they make a lot of money on the, is it the cargo tracking note or something like that? I heard they said the government said they made a lot of money also, or it could be the paperless. But the point is, if you were trading at 3 point something per dollar, and now at the last end of quarter of the year, you are trading at 4.6, 4.7 to 4.8. That when we ended the year. So let's ask ourselves the quantity of goods that came from at the point you were bringing, you were trading, you were calculating duty on 3 point something, and the quantities of goods that came when you were calculating goods at the 4 point something. Is that the same? So in terms of quantity of goods, in terms of goods coming, we can't particularly take one particular goods, or maybe clinker, and say, oh, they brought more clinker into the country, and so we have made a lot of money. They have not given that statistics. So it is wheat, a full load of vessels with wheat, or it is cars. So because of CTN and other things that the government introduced at the port there, our importation has dropped. Traffic congestion has dropped in our ports. That is a clear evidence. Now, my brother was asking about if they will make money this week. Yes, this is the perception the government.
Is it a perception?
Yeah, this is the perception
that there are leakages at the ports.
That there's
evasion of tax.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perception.
No, look, do you know that no single person can commit a crime?
You mean
abetment of crime? No single person.
Okay.
Like
there's collusion.
There must be a collusion.
Okay.
Now we are paying of custom officers to be at the port there to do the work, and we still doubt the officers that we put there to do the work.
But that's why we're trying to reduce the human interface.
That's why when you go to the port there.
So yes, Samson, hold it.
By system.
Samson, hold it.
People still fly at the port.
For you, what do you consider the merits of this paperless system?
The merit of this paperless system that I saw is that, one, it has reduced the human interaction, as you said earlier. Two,
the time involved.
The time involved, but it's not the 4 hours, I must say.
Oh, it's not, right?
No, it's not. It could be 2 to 3 days before you can play.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the
first, when it used to be DICs, Destination Inspection Companies,
right?
If they come out with your values and the importer is not happy, you have to go all the way to this DIC company, Destination Inspection Company, then finally get back to custom for them to get the final arbiter. So when custom said they were taking their final arbiter to do their final mandatory work, it was superb, we agreed. But as you speak, the vice president himself came to realize that even the paperless that he said they were relocating custom long room to headquarters, until the mobile money is hit someone's account, work is not flowing. And even at the current review, the vice president has revised the paperless system again, making custom, Ghana Food and Drugs Authority and Standards Authority. Then maybe some few security agencies to like B&I and other things to stay. We still have other task force, like the assistant commissioner has his own task force, the national security has their task forces. tax forces upon tax forces at the port there, it's not an easy thing. So yes, if you ask me the demerit of the whole facility, I would say, okay, well, it has reduced the human interaction, but there are certain areas money must exchange hands before work flow.
Have you made that known to the authorities?
The vice president, he even made it on public one of his public statements that he had, and that is the reason why he was calling that compliance. You know, there was a department called compliance.
Right.
He asked for it to stop. In fact, he directed that it should be abolished at the headquarters. As we speak, compliance is still running at the custom headquarters.
Winslow.
You see, there are still
challenges,
issues,
right?
Yes, with implementation, and for some, there are people who are benefiting from the old system, so they are putting up a lot of resistance. And I think if we don't have that political will to push it through, the system will be frustrated, and then it will get to a point where we would say that, okay, the paperless is not working, let's go back to paper. But I think that's the push we need now.
No, the mistake they did was, if I can come in with you, was that when they started the paperless implementation, there's no project manager. There's no program manager. So that if me, Samson Asake, I'm processing the document, then maybe, it goes to other stakeholders, like FDA, Standards Authority, others, maybe they have to issue permit certificates and other things. Or maybe GCNet is down, or West Blue is down, or it delays on someone's off. We should be able to have a place that you can go and report, and that shouldn't be, that should be the project office. Right. So they can all monitor and know.
We've got to wrap up this conversation. But Winslow, I need, Samson, I need you to tell me what the way forward is with regards to dealing with those challenges that you have identified at the ports.
Well, I think that sometimes because of the way some of us speak our mind, if government want to meet stakeholders to discuss some of the issues and the fundamental problems in the port, they don't invite me. I have not bothered. I'm not bothered because I still have the opportunity to play out our issues out there. I expect the economic money meeting to invite us to have a national, even the last I called, that the Vice President office should call for another national dialogue. When they took over office in 2017, his first major point was to call for this port summit. After paperless implementation, we've not had any national forum bringing with the stakeholders like he brought it last time to do a conversation for us to know what is okay, what is not okay, how can it be done, so that in the way forward. So I still want to insist that how come that you call a port summit and also ask of the implementation of, even at that time we said we should do it gradually, and the government went full fledged, and we saw how it broke that same year, but they were able to be on their feet, and then they sailed through. Right. So I think that we need a national dialogue. So if His Excellency the Vice President is listening, it is good he call us again. Let us sit on the national table and let us discuss the issue. And we'll tell him our side, and the government officers at the point will also tell their side. And at the end of the day, government can make conclusions.
All right, thank you very much. I've got to say a big thank you to you. Samson Asake Gobet is Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana, helping us to do some analysis on the ongoing discussion to have our domestic tax revenue target revised upwards. So we're going to end this conversation. We'll take a short break. When we return, Winslow will still be with me. As you may be aware, the world market price of crude oil has risen to an all-time high as a result of decision by OPEC to cut supplies. We also know that the United States government has instituted sanctions against the Venezuelan petroleum industry, which has further tightened the market. We'll find out what the implications are for our country and what's the way forward. We'll also do some analysis on the stock market as well as the commodities market. All this and many more coming up in the next few minutes. to you. Welcome back to Business Focus, your weekly business and economic analysis program, live here on TV3. Winslow Sakifio is still here with me in the studio. Pretty shortly, we'll be doing some analysis on the stock market as well as the commodities market. But let's do this quick story. It's about the entrepreneurship director of the Ghana Climate Incubator Center, the GCIC, Abdul Nasser Alidu. And he's been interacting with my colleague, Ebenezer Ejekum Boatin, on what he means when he says the mindset and the skills are the setbacks for the country's entrepreneurs. He's explained this in an interview.
Welcome and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
The public sector, that's through the government trying to do some of the incubator programs, giving incentive for startups. Your institution is doing it. What should be the direction for the country so that at the end of the day, we know that we're moving from this step and that is the target we want to get?
There are a lot of good things that are being done. You have programs like the NEIP, which are all aimed at improving entrepreneurship in the country. However, I feel there are certain thoughts or misconceptions that we need to correct, and that could also even help us in terms of how we package the programs to make the programs a lot more effective. Okay. When you look at least the entrepreneurs that I have worked with to date, the biggest issue has been how to scale businesses, right? And that's why you have a lot of, businesses in this country. They start off, they are very small, and they remain small forever. And the solution I have seen, for a lot of the programs give to this problem is let's pump money into the businesses. Let's give them money, and they will be able to scale, right? But the challenge for a lot of them is their business models. The business models are not the right business models. The business models don't lend themselves to easily scaling. And to resolve that is to actually sit with the businesses, provide them with the know-how to be able to look at their businesses and be able to come up with business models that scale. To be able to think through, well, how do I access the markets that are out there, right? How do I ensure that this thing I'm doing is repeatable and is repeatable at a good cost?
Money to a startup, and you go back to them and the money maybe has been spent not to the benefit of their business. So they need proper skills to be able to manage the business that they will set up.
And that's what we haven't really got a lot of programs doing. So you see programs, large scale programs, we get a lot of people together, we give them X amount of money, but if you give the money to the entrepreneur without guidance, without the skills on how to employ that money, eventually what actually happens is they employ it to do the things they've always been doing, and after a year you go back to them and that money is all gone. Okay. So the direction I think should be more aimed at helping to impart the right skills and the right mindset to entrepreneurs to be successful. Now, the second misconception is most of the entrepreneurship program I see are targeted at fresh graduates. And I think that is a good thing. It's good to encourage our fresh graduates to look into entrepreneurship. But the truth of the matter, and if you look at all kinds of research that looks at successful entrepreneurship, will tell you that yes, there are the single cases or the few cases of people who dropped out of school, set up a business like Mark Zuckerberg and became successful. But if you really want successful businesses, if you want to do this on scale, to get a lot of people to be successful, we should also focus on the mid-career professionals who have gained experience in the corporate world, are at a stage where they are looking to do new things, and who, because of their experience, are more likely to become successful entrepreneurs, right? And I still have not found any program in Ghana targeted at these kind of people. But the truth is, if we target these kind of people, we are going to get people who have experience, who have seen the world, who know how businesses are run, and who are more likely to be successful entrepreneurs. And perhaps we can grow our entrepreneurs. So it's good to target the fresh graduates, but we are more likely to get more successes if we target the mid-career people who want to leave corporate and to get into entrepreneurship.
That brings me to the beautiful laws and regulations that we have. Problems become monitoring, implementation, and enforcement. When people go through the incubator program, startups, do you follow up to make sure that what you taught them are being practiced and that you expect something from them maybe after a year or 2 or 3?
The way GCIC solve this problem is that once you get into the incubator, we assign a portfolio manager to you. The portfolio manager is like a business advisor who works with you through the period whilst you are in the incubator. So beyond the training that you are getting, so we take them through like a mini MBA kind of class to help them ensure that everybody has the basic skills to run a business. Now, your portfolio manager would then be the person who helps you set your targets, set your objectives, develop the strategies, and helps you with executing those strategies. The hope is through this process, the entrepreneur actually gets to learn how to run a business. They get to develop the skills that will help them to become successful, right? And so that even after the incubation period, they have what it takes to continue going forward.
There's a school of thought that says that entrepreneurship should be taught right away from the secondary schools. Would you agree to this?
I think there are several things that makes a successful entrepreneur. Some of it I don't necessarily think can be taught. What I realize is missing with a lot of entrepreneurs in Ghana is having the right skills, right? So understanding what's the right business model for me, how do I structure this so that it can scale, so that it's not just about I'm passionate about this, but I also have a plan on how to grow this. And then, of course, the mindset, having the right kind of mindset and not waiting for someone to come and give you some huge amount of money before you get moving. As an entrepreneur, there'll be more downsides than upsides, actually. So you experience a lot of challenges, but you need grit in able to overcome this. You can't teach this in a classroom. It is something that the entrepreneur needs to have. The entrepreneur needs to have stamina. They need to be able to withstand a lot of these things. So there are certain things you can teach, but there are certain things that the entrepreneur needs to develop themselves.
Abdul Nasser Alidu, the Entrepreneurship Director of GCIC. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, so you had my colleague Eben Ajekum Boateng in that interview with the director of the Climate Incubator Center, Abdul Nasser Alidu. Let's get back in studio. Winslow Sakifio is the head of capital market for First Bank Financial Services. Winslow, let's start off with the international market and the price of oil and all that's happening with OPEC and also with Venezuela, U.S. sanctions and all that. What do you know?
Unfortunately, we are having a lot of things that would negatively affect oil for us happening at the same time. OPEC decided to cut supplies, yes. Unfortunately, Saudi Arabia and the other big players, they reduced it more than they agreed to reduce. So there was sort of a shortage in the system. And we have the issue of Venezuela. They are having a very serious political crisis. And Venezuela produces crude, so the supply from there too is not coming up. And it looks like demand for crude too is going up. U.S. job market data is going good. So we have demand rising gradually, supply being artificially cut short, and that tends to push up the price. So last week, Friday, we had crude recording the highest for the year, 63.65. So that is where we stand now. And for us here, if crude goes up again, then we would have issues with pump prices and all that. But it's very likely OPEC members would tone down a bit. I mean, when price goes up, they benefit, but the rest of the world suffers. And I think with the increase on Friday, we'll see a gradual fall in crude prices, unless the Venezuela issue is not resolved quickly.
I don't know if it's ever going to be resolved anytime soon. We've already had the Venezuelan president also issue some threats to the American president, and I wonder what's going to. I mean, he said that Donald Trump has said that there's a likelihood they could step in, and if they do, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, if they do, then the world becomes even more challenging, and crude prices would go up. But I think with time it will be resolved. Most global economies are recognizing the opposition leaders, so it's likely there will be a compromise at some point, which might ease the tension a bit.
All right, so let's get to cocoa and cocoa and what else?
Cocoa and gold.
And gold, right?
Yes, for gold, gold, when there are lots of uncertainties, gold prices tend to pick up, and that's what we are seeing happening. Venezuela is there, but it looks like because the U.S. is in some sort of discussion with China on the trade war, there's a bit of uneasing when it comes to gold, but prices are beginning to pick up. For cocoa, we nearly had a situation where the supply was going to be cut because Nestle had an issue with child labor and all that, but I think that case didn't materialize. So cocoa, we expect the price to fall a bit, which will not be very good for our cocoa farmers in Ghana, but it will be for anybody who uses cocoa, especially the grinders in the US and Europe.
Let's go to the financial stocks. No, stocks in general. Have the financial stocks started performing? Have they started picking up? And what was the best performing for last week?
Unfortunately, I'll say the market is a bit mixed, especially for financial stocks. We had some of them, showing some promises, and others to witnessing some falls. We had Total being the highest gainer because it posted year to date last year data that was good. Revenue had gone up, their profits to have gone up, and for Total and the petroleum sector in general, normally when crude prices are going up, their profit margins tend to rise. So it's understandable, and given the increase in crude prices, it's likely this first quarter they will witness very good results. Unfortunately for the financial stocks, a lot of them have negative sentiments surrounding them. The banking reforms are still going on, and most investors are not very certain, even though government has given an indication about which banks it is ready to assist and which ones they would allow to die a natural death. So it's still mixed for financials, but I am very positive for manufacturing stocks. This year they would, I think they would carry
Winslow, thank you very much. We've got to wrap up. Thank you very much. Winslow Sakifio is, he is the head of capital market for First Bank Financial Services. Join us to do some analysis of the stock market as well as the commodities market. Thank you very much for joining us on the Business Focus. This has been your most authoritative business and economic analysis program, live here on TV3 every Monday, 6 to 7 p.m. My name is Pakusi Asari. Thanks to the production team as well as the producers. News 360 is up next. God willing, we'll see you same time next week.